Nicola Woolley went missing on the 27th of January 2023. There was a scream. Witnesses said they heard a couple of screams within the area at the same time. Police search advisor has in the report that she's been taken down the river and gone over the weir. It was immediately treated just as she's fallen in at the bench. That's it. It should have been sealed off straight away. The whole area should have been sealed off. This is a potential young girl who potentially could have been kidnapped. Pretty young lady murdered, and there was nothing treated like that at all. The last time she was seen was actually up in the top field, not at the bench. That was messed up, and they did not want us in that hot zone. The evidence has been now confirmed by 3 independent experts who have said that is Nicola's body, without a doubt.
Peter, welcome to the Pocket Sergeant podcast.
Thank you, Paul. Good morning.
Firstly, I want to know more about your background. Peter, what led you to become involved in search work and underwater investigations?
Well, it goes back a long way, really. Believe it or not, when I was 5 years old, my dad discovered a series of old disused mine workings in Merstham in Surrey. And my dad got involved. He was a keen caver when he was in the army. And from 5, I started going down the old disused mine workings with him, literally. People won't believe it. I've written extensively about it, and that encouraged me to. I always want to be Thunderbirds. It's weird, and that was my favourite program on TV. And for many years, up until in my 20s, I was going down the disused mines with Dad, digging and tunnelling through the old mine workings. So under Merstham, there's 18 miles of surveyed so far disused, not coal mine, Firestone, which is like a greenstone. And it breaks very easily. You have to leave it out to weather. And it was mined extensively under Surrey back to the 11th century. So that was a lot of my life. And I ended up training the fire service later on in confined space tunnelling operations.
Going back to you being a child and exploring those caves, how did it feel at that age being thrust into that sort of situation?
Well, it was great. I mean, the thing is, what we would do is dig through roof falls. So where the roof had collapsed or had been blown in years ago, we would dig through, and it might take 2, 3, 4 months to get through a roof fall. And my dad would dig through with Dennis, and I'd be up there pulling rocks out for them. And eventually, you might get through a tiny little hole, and then they're just about to be seen through. And I obviously would be pushed through a lot of the time to actually go and see what we'd broken into, and you would find old clay pipes on the floor. It was absolutely amazing. There's an old couple of oxen skeletons down there. It was like living Indiana Jones, really.
Was it not
scary?
Was
absolutely fantastic. It wasn't. I got used to it. I got used to the dark, so I would go through and I would get pushed through this wall what no one had been in for maybe hundreds of years, and then walk up the passage, and they would say, "What's there?" While they were digging through to make it big enough for them to get through. It was incredible, and I loved every minute of it. I didn't think about the dark or the scariness. I sort of just grew up with that, so it was fantastic.
Health and safety would have a field day now with that, wouldn't they?
Well, it's funny. I used to go to school and talk to the teachers about it, and they asked me to do little talks and bring in clay pipes that I'd found down the mines.
So they knew it was happening as well.
They found it fascinating, yeah. I mean, I just used to, that was the days when you had milk at school. You used to get the little bottles of milk. There was no IT, there was nothing. It was brilliant. Overhead projectors and stuff. It was great fun. So yeah, that's what led me on. And then when I got into my when I was 16, I left school and I got an apprenticeship as a radar engineer. Well, the first year I started with another engineering company called Multico, got me redundant. And then my training officer got me a new job at Civil Aviation Authority, the TE engineering establishment at Gatwick. So I trained as a radar engineer, and I went on for 6 years doing that. And in the background, because it was Joint Ministry of Defence, that was, and then I joined the Reserve Parachute Regiment when I was 18, and I went for selection for that. So there was 184 of us started, and 28 finished the course, which was great. And then I went on to become a military parachutist as well. I spent 6 years in there, so I'd done lots of courses, and that was really good grounding for me, a lot of discipline. I was in the Air Cadets when I was a kid as well, so I used to fly and glide, and that was fantastic. So I had a sort of a good military sort of background as well. I had a very technical background with obviously the radar engineering, I spent 6 years at college as well as part of that course, so I could make anything in metal and weld electronics. It was very, very good. But I always wanted to be this sort of do this rescue stuff, and people used to laugh at me, and I ended up in my 20s training when I was up, I started, because the mines were so vast, we made them vast, not by digging them vast, but breaking through to new sections. And it got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then eventually I was up there one day and I met the fire brigade. They were started to go down the mines. They said, could you help us? So I become a sort of unofficial scout for them. So I used to go and help them free of charge to show them through the mines. And then one day they said, look, we could do with you on call, unpaid, but with a pager, because if anyone gets lost down here, and a lot more scout groups. So yeah, we had about 5 incidents up there, and I used to get called out with them to be a scout for the fire service, because I knew the whole mine like the back of my hand. And no one else. There was a few others who did, but not many. There was the local caving clubs who did, but they knew me and they relied on me to come in and help.
So was
them.
it more?
So that was my introduction.
Sorry. So was it more about you helping them navigate the mines rather than from a safety perspective?
Yeah, I was navigating the mines really, and the safety, because they didn't know anything about dealing with rock structures. I did. I mean, I spent years and years dealing with it, and I became a sort of expert tunneler as well. So it was sort of tunneling, confined space tunneling is different confined spaces, but actually tunneling through rock and shoring things up and digging shafts is quite an art. And it's a dying art, because coal miners don't do it anymore. So I then went on. Then London Fire Brigade came down to Surrey to do their rope training, special rescue training, and then I was introduced to London Fire Brigade. And then London Fire Brigade introduced me to sort of West Midlands Fire Brigade, and then I ended up training what they called the UXAR teams, the United Kingdom Search and Rescue Teams, which is now USAR, down at Fort Woodley in Hampshire. So I would teach the guys and girls to shore up, tunnels, because these people were going to the earthquakes. And then that changed in 2000, when after 9/11, when they started going out to Texas and so on, doing the New Dimensions project. But that was good. So I got that, and then I got introduced to the air ambulance teams in London, and I used to train the air ambulance medics and doctors underground. And Dr. Heather Clark, I remember her writing a book about me, and she said Peter Faulding could get into any hole available or something like that. I thought, you got to be careful when you talk like that, but it was a good. She wrote about me, and I was lucky enough to go up there and work with the doctors. So they would, because I gave them free training every few weeks, they would have me up on the air ambulance flying with them as a I'd carry the kit and things like that. And whilst I was there, they put me as an observer on the advanced trauma life support course with the doctors, which was great. I didn't get paid for it, but I was there and they let me have a go on all the sorts of pigs and things, what they practice on. Just as an observer, but the experience was phenomenal. And I think later on, and then I used to sit in the back of the helicopter and admire these pilots flying this thing, and the doctors obviously, but the pilots at the front of this was really cool. And obviously I didn't realise, obviously now I'm a helicopter pilot, fixed wing, but years later, that gave me the drive to go and become a helicopter pilot and own my own helicopter. So I'm quite fortunate to be able to do that. But it was when I left school, actually at school, I didn't leave with hardly any qualifications, because I was more interested in physics, metalwork and sport. But I wasn't really interested in anything else. It wasn't that I couldn't do it, but I just wasn't focused. And that's the thing with a lot of kids today. They get written off because, you've got to go to uni, you'll never become anybody. And I had the teacher say to me, you'll never get anywhere in life. And that's what she said to me when I left. Now I run a multi-million-pound business, but that was a red flag for me. So if anyone is watching, I think, Johnny's not got the qualifications he needs at school. It's like being a pilot. To be a pilot, you don't need qualifications. You just need to pass the exams. Yeah. So that's it. You could fly 747s, 777s. you just need to do your aviation exams. You don't need a degree. You just need to be able to pass the course and learn to fly and do the academia on that side. So yeah, that was the early part of my life when I started. And I think, and then along come the Newbury bypass protest of the '90s, about 1995, and I was at the time I had two little girls, and I lost the under the Thatcher government then. Because everyone loved Margaret Thatcher, I thought she was a great prime minister. But then she brought in the poll tax, and the poll tax was sort of like I was paying £100 for me and £100 for my wife, and that was her downfall. You know, the mass riots, and there was all sorts of problems, and the interest rates went from I think 4% up to about 16% in a year. So we had our house repossessed. So then I had two little girls, and to make ends meet, I went cleaning at the airport for double shifts at the weekend, 16 hours, just to get the money in, just to keep us going. And we ended up getting got a council flat, and it wasn't like me. And I thought, well, we'll get that flat. We'll do what we can. And then while I was there, I set up I was doing lots of training, and I started to write articles for International Fire and Rescue magazine and things like that. And I'd get, I don't know, £200 or £300 for an article. And I called my company, well, it wasn't a company, it was one man on a flat, really, Specialist Rescue International. And I remember talking to some firefighters one day, so they laughed at me, Thunderbirds, you know. And I said, well, at least I'm having a go, you know. So and then I got a call one day. I was lecturing at Netley, Hampshire, for the police. I was doing confined space training for the police, and all refineries where I was actually getting paid to do it because of my training, my background in obviously rescue, and with Dad, and he taught me a lot. And I ended up teaching them in confined spaces. So then one day I got this call, and my wife, I remember having a baby in her hand, Mandy, and she said, Specialist Rescue International, can I help you, sort of thing. And the baby, Natasha's crying in the background, and he said, my name's Superintendent Mervyn Edwards. I'd like to speak to Peter. So I was like, she said, I'll put you through. Handed the phone over, sort of thing, as you do. As all businesses start that way, you know, from garages and stuff, some of the biggest companies, you know. And I took the call and said, yeah, what can I do for you, Mervyn? He said, my name's Mervyn. He said, I'd like to meet you in, I think, 2 days' time. He said, we've got a big meeting. You're not sure if you've been watching TV, but we got protesters dug in underground in tunnels. And from a presentation you did at Netley to my colleagues in Hampshire Police, I believe you might be able to help us out. So he said, we got a big meeting. Now, bearing in mind, I didn't have hardly any money. I was living in a flat. But through the military, I my shoes were always immaculate, and I had a hole in the bottom of my shoe, and I couldn't afford to get it done. That wasn't a priority. So I put a bit of cardboard in the bottom of the shoe to stop me touching the ground. And I drove my car to Cheveley Services and went up to there and met up with Mervyn. He said, you're going to go into this meeting. We've got the Treasury solicitors, we've got the Assistant Chief Constable, we've got the Under-Sheriff. Now, an Under-Sheriff represents, in them days, it was the legal, any writ of eviction, a legal process to remove protester will go through him. So Nick Blandy, his name was, great guy. And so I walked into this room, there's all these people looking at me around the big long table. I'm not used to that, you know. And said, Peter, I need you to get these people out the tunnels for us safely. And I understand you're the man who can help us. And I said, well, when are you looking at doing it? He said, 2 weeks. And I thought, wow. Now this, if you look at the YouTube, you know, Battle of Newbury, Third Battle of Newbury, it was people being pulled out of trees. They dug a network of tunnels like tunnels of Cu Chi. It was incredible. And anyway, I didn't have a contract. So he said, I need a copy of your contract. And I said, right. He said, you don't have one, do you? He said, just cobble something together. You know, in them days, it was great. So I cobbled this thing together, sent it over, and he signed it. And that after it got that signed, sent back, I didn't know what to charge. I think I charged him £3,200 for the thing. I didn't understand expenses or things like that. So we got the job done. The first night we went down there, the covert team, the Crops team, those the police officers will know, they waited for the guy to come out and use the bathroom and grabbed him, just oinked him out and go, you're nicked. So now my job was to go down the tunnel, and I took Dad with me and a medic, and I went down the tunnel to search them to make sure there was no one down the tunnels, and if there was, to try and talk them out. Now I'm on my own down there, so I'm used to being in the dark tunnels on my own. So Dad was on the surface, giving me backup. I went down, and they shored it all up. It was actually built by an ex-Cornish tin miner. So I checked all the tunnels and eventually cleared that one, and then the bulldozer come in and backfilled it. And then a few days later, I got another call, say, Nick, we've got another tunnel. Da da da. Anyway, I sent the bill for the first one through, and we were there 18 hours the first day, and I was soaking wet. I had a bucket of excrement tipped over me out of a tree, and I had nowhere to wash or anything. I had a wetsuit on underneath just because it was full of water, this tunnel. And we worked along the side the HSE as well during the process, Nick Marsh. Anyway, that was that, and I put the bill in, but I didn't want to charge for a hotel because I thought it was too much money. I had no idea of costs, and I thought me and Dad were driving home, and I'd like matchsticks holding my eyes up. And we got home that night, put the bill in, and I got a phone call back about an hour later. I sent it through on a fax machine, as we did then, out the computer. And Nick come back and said, Peter, he said, I've got an issue with your bill. I said, oh, no, I felt really bad. What have I done? I've put it in exactly what we agreed. I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to get told off. He said, no, man, you're too cheap. He said, you've not even put any hotel expenses there. Where did you stay that night? I said, well, we drove home. And he said, you need to resort your prices out because I got bailiffs charging me £40,000 a day. Unbelievable. Anyway, we'd done a few more little jobs there. Then I got introduced to the Undersheriff of Devon and Cornwall, which was Trevor Coleman. Trevor came up, and then he said, we got a chap named Swampy down there in the tunnels, and he's dug in and he's getting lots of media, and I need to have a meeting with you next week. So I went down to Devon, and then we planned to remove Swampy and his colleagues. But Newbury, there was no one in the tunnels. We managed to take the tunnels secretly, but the actual Honiton was different. It was a different ball game altogether. And those who read my book, I really go into the sort of details of it. You know, it was incredible, and it was totally different. I mean, there was lots and lots of protesters underground. In Swampy's tunnel, there was 8 or 9 of them underground, which we had to get down. And I was the only one in my team, so I cobbled together a team of ex-military guys, you know, parachute regiment. I was teaching them to tunnel because nobody, you know, there was no one who had this skill. So I was digging, I was tunneling, I was teaching them for sure. And we spent 9 days down there to get Swampy out. And the funniest thing is, when he eventually come out, he lived, if you imagine a long tunnel, they put doors in the way, and he dug a shaft which was about 18 feet deep inside a tunnel, about, I don't know, 24 inches square vertically, and that's had to be shored all the way down with inside a tunnel. It was a long job. It was hard work. And you're chatting to them. You're actually chatting to them and talking to them all the way through, and they'd be behind a door and they'd be chatting. And at night time, we had a camera down there, and they'd watch them come out, and they come out and run through like rats, you know. But he came out, and then as we got him out, there was a guy found some dead badger in the road, and he jumped in front of the media and said, look, they're killing badgers. Oh. And it was a bit of roadkill. They pulled up down the road. So we did that. And anyway, it went on, and then I become the sort of national lead really on dealing with protests. So I was called to sit on the Home Office working group, the policing of environmental protest. And I was lecturing to the Bramshill Police College, the policing of environmental protest course up there as well. And that was good because that would be sort of bronze, silver, gold commanders on that course. And I would do a 2-hour presentation with a break in the middle, all about how to deal with this type of protest. It was a new thing back in the 90s, and that went on up until 2001. And we went on to Manchester Airport, and we had Manchester Airport second runway. And then I got involved in maritime protest as well. So that's where the underwater stuff started.
Okay.
So I went. We were doing maritime protest work for the sort of nuclear industry, and when I sat on the Home Office, I joined various senior police and looking at ways we could search water, including under ships. So I went out to America to see what they were doing. So I decided to purchase sonar, and I earned a substantial amount of money at all the protest work. So I invested in the sonar. So bearing in mind what I'd done, I'd been living in a flat. Now I bought my first industrial unit as an office within that time in about 97. We're still there today. We own 6 now, but I bought the first unit, bought a lot more equipment to deal with this vast investment. So I got side scan sonar. So side scan sonar is a tool that can search large areas of water. So I started using it over here in Reservoir, Weirwood Reservoir, and local rivers, and I could end up finding sort of items like a handbag on the bottom of the river, and then we got a medical skeleton, put him in a pair of overalls, and tied a rope onto him and threw him over the side of the boat. You can imagine if anyone saw watching, I think we're dumping a body, but we had a marker float and we would scan that to see what it looked like. Could we see the clothing? Could we see the bones? Could we see whatever? And then I got involved with now Dr. Mark Harrison. Mark Harrison was the first national police search advisor, who not local pulses, but he was a national searcher. He was the first one. And then Mark oversaw the trials, and then I got put on the expert database for it was then the National Operations Faculty at Y Boston, and then it went, I think, to National Crime and Operations Faculty, and then changed its name. But I worked with Mark on many cases, and we got good results. And so that I pioneered sonar in the UK. The Navy had been using it, but no one had ever used it for forensic search. So I was the first ever to use it and become very specialist using side scan sonar. And then alongside that, I got ground penetrating radar as well. And I was always good at finding things because my dad would say, "Keep your eyes open, son." And we lived right on the edge of the countryside. So he would pick up things, and where we were searching for old mine shafts, we'd see depressions and we'd dig down. So that sort of background, and with the military, I'd be sort of search was I got good at. And then as I went through the jobs, I then started to lecture at the National Police Search Centre at Chattenden in Kent, where there was Lieutenant Colonel Garth Whitty and Bob Tompkins, the sort of senior instructors, and down there they were the military side of the counter-terrorist search wing down there at Chattenden. So I'd be a regular visitor down there. And it was funny, one day I was down there and I was chatting away and doing a presentation, and 2 Americans come up to me. And he said, "Oh, Peter, my name's Bill Utley," and he said, "I'm from the US Secret Service." Oh, well, okay. He said, "We'd like you to come over to the States to do some stuff for us." And I'm going, "Really?" That was a conversation. He said, "We'd like you to come to the White House." And anyway, I was an official guest to the White House for the Secret Service. So I got invited over there, spent a week over there. And lucky enough, I was over there and I went to Quantico, to the FBI, presented to the FBI and the military out there. So it was, for me, this was mind-blowing to get, to present to the Secret Service, and also to get a guided tour of the White House, including the President's office, was just mind-blowing. And one thing I do remember, and I wrote about it, was President Reagan was, when Bill, sort of who was the favourite president? It was President Reagan, and he was a lovely man, because those who know, he used to be an actor, and he used to have a big jar of jelly beans, I think they called it, on his desk, a big jar of them every night. And the Secret Service would walk around and check his office at night time. And they used to dip in and help themselves to the jelly babies. And one day he came up to me, President Ray, said, "Bill, we need to have a chat." And he put his arm around him. "You've been taking my jelly babies." And it's funny, that was his favourite tipple, apparently. Unbelievable. But stories like that, I got taken into all the underground garages where they kept all the vehicles. It was just, from a lad who grew up on a sort of council estate to now going to the White House, and the thing is, people watch this. I've got the photos. I've got they gave me a little special coin thing, and I've got all the mementos from the White House. It was amazing, and what a story,
But
from
I mean,
suddenly, yeah,
that's amazing that you got called over there as well and recognised for what you did. But I
yeah,
mean, you worked on some incredibly complex cases beyond Nicola bullies. I think the Nicola bully case is when I first became aware of you, and that'll be the same for
yeah.
many, I'd imagine. But can you share one or two stories or cases that you've worked on that's really stuck with you?
I think, yeah, again, working with Mark Harrison, a couple big ones. Peter Tobin, so serial killer Peter Tobin. He's dead now, but he 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 was notorious. He's probably one of Britain's biggest serial killers. Now, there's probably many more that he's murdered that we know about. So he started his, say, the incidents down in now South Sea, down Portsmouth area, where he raped and sadly two young little girls. I think they're only 10 years old or something, and he tied them up after he finished with them, and then he turned the gas pipe on, the gas tap. Evil man. And then he went on the run. The police arrested him. I think it roughly served 10 years out of 14 or something. He got released. He then changed his name to Pat McLaughlin, and he went to Scotland as a handyman, got himself a job in a church as a handyman. And in there was a young Polish girl called Angelica Klug, working in there as helping out with teas and coffees in the church. And one day she went missing, and Tobin disappeared. The police searched the place, and under the hatch, under the floor, sadly, there was the body of Angelica. She was stabbed many, many times and assaulted. And he went on the run. Police caught him quickly, and they started questioning him, and they started to look at his previous addresses. And he lived in a place called Bathgate. That's where he came from originally. Now, many years ago, 15 years earlier, roughly, a young girl called Vicky Hamilton disappeared. Now, they've never been able to find Vicky. And, the operation Anagram was run by Detective Superintendent David Swindle. They put Anagram together. Now, the Bathgate was under Lothian and Borders Police, so they started a inquiry called Operation Mahogany. Now, I was brought in under Mahogany, under Kenny. Kenny was the sergeant up there, and Mark Harrison was the National Search Advisor. And Mark sent me lots of confidential documents. No one knew what was going on, and we planned to go in early one morning. And bearing in mind, people lived there since. Tobin had moved out years earlier, but these people didn't have no idea they were going to suddenly get moved out of their house that morning. Potential human remains. Now, the idea was to search Tobin's former house. So the police weren't searching it. We were brought in to conduct the full forensic search of the house. So the police were there guarding it, and they were there to do any bloods if required, but we were doing the complete search. So we used ground radar in the back garden. The people got moved out, put in a hotel, and I located an area of disturbed ground at the top. So the neighbour said there was a big rockery at the top of the garden. And there's been a lot of articles written on it. And I spoke to the neighbour, and the neighbour said, I remember him digging that hole under the rock. He said, I said, you digging for Australia? And and a couple of days later, it was filled in. And he said, oh, why have you filled it in? He was, because I'm building a sandpit, but the social services have told me to fill it in. Didn't think nothing more of it. So anyway, using the radar, the forensic archaeologist took the rockery down, and then I ground radared it, and I could see the whole area had been disturbed. So they followed it. Jennifer followed it all the way down the original cut marks, because they got human remains dogs in first. They probed the ground, left it for 30 minutes, and the dog indicated over the area. So Jennifer followed it all the way down with one of her colleagues, and there was nothing in there. But you can see the hole had been dug.
Going back to the radar that you were using, the ground penetration thing.
Yeah.
If there had been remains in there, is that something that the radar should have picked up, or is it only disturbed
Oh yeah,
ground?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it'll also it'll pick up the disturbed ground, but it will pick up a hyperbola or hyperbola, whatever you want to call it. It'll pick up disturbance in the ground, and it'll pick up an object. So some radar can be. You've really got to know what you're doing with ground radar. It's you can buy it and you think great. So where I live on the farm, I've got alpacas. So when they naturally die, I bury them and I teach forensic students. So you know, you can, if you haven't got it programmed properly, you can miss things. So you can go over an area and say, there's nothing there. So I carry two bits of kit. I carry a magnetometer, I carry metal detectors plus GPR. So I cross them over. Not many people do that. So it's really important to have the two running alongside to get good proper results, or things can be missed. So yeah, we run the radar over. It didn't show anything. It showed one anomaly in there, but not too big. But bearing in mind, you could be looking for a body that had been dismembered or whatever. So you've got to remember that, or we could be looking for a buried arm. So Jennifer dug down. There was nothing in there. So then I went into the kitchen and found a void under the kitchen floor, which again was checked. It wasn't nothing. But again, the radar found it, which was a good thing. Whilst I was in the kitchen, I got a call from the loft. Aidan and Robin, who were ex-pulsers and police officers, they found a dagger in the loft, secreted, hidden in the loft. And suddenly everybody's focused, and took the forensic tube up there. It was put in the forensic tube and rushed off for DNA analysis. Now, it was interesting because when it went to court, it said, the police officer said, when I found it in the loft. No, it wasn't the police officer who found it. So that was wrong. That was the way it was reported. It was actually us that found it. We handed it to the police officer in the loft because we stripped all the lagging out. Because the thing is, when you're searching lofts, you can have a quick look around, but we completely took every piece of lagging out of the loft. So nothing could be missed. You know, all the water tanks behind everything. And they found the knife. And it came back that Vicky Hamilton's DNA was actually on this knife after all them years. And that convicted Tobin and linked Tobin to the murder of Vicky Hamilton. But where was Vicky? So now it was fast ball operation now, looking at all his previous addresses, and one of them was in Southsea. So we got taken with Mark down to Southsea, where he only rented a room within a house. So we searched the garden, we searched under the floor, we actually went down into the cellars, remembering his MO, we potentially a barrier. we knocked a hole through the wall, cut a hole through the wall, searched all under his former bedroom. And then whilst we were there was another operation going on in Kent with Kent Police and Lucy Syburn, the forensic archaeologist. And Lucy was down there with one of her colleagues, and they located in the garden up there, a cap of concrete. They dug through the cap of concrete, and underneath was Vicky Hamilton. So then, in another part of the garden, there was another. They found some more, and it was another young girl called Dinah McNicol. Now, she went missing from Junction 8 of the M25. She was hitching a lift. Sadly, got in the wrong car with Tobin. So we believe that Vicky was definitely in Scotland because she was sadly dismembered and wrapped in plastic, and she was put in the garden up there. We believe in that hole, and then when he moved house, he dug her up, put her in a van, and then took her to Kent in his new house to actually put her in the ground there. And that's sadly where they both ended up. He was an absolute monster, evil man. And there's probably many more that no one will. He travelled around the country. He used to assault his wife at knife point, and he was an absolute monster. So that was a big success for SGI, the initial location of the knife in the loft with the DNA that actually linked Tobin. And then obviously I worked on April Jones, sadly the missing little girl. No, she was never found, only in bone fragments. But another interesting job using radar was one in Boreham Wood, where the nosy neighbour was rang the police one day and said, "I think the son has murdered the dad and buried him in the garden." And I remember went to the local CID. Yeah, okay, fine, thanks very much for and didn't take any notice. And it went on for a number of
It is a
years.
bit of a strange call, though.
It is a strange call, and you can understand. You're from the police side. Yeah, okay, fine, a nosy neighbour, and then it got to the stage where the serious crime directorate took it over and started looking at the bank accounts and going, actually, something's not right here. So again, Mark was the National Search Advisor, said, "Pete, I want you to come in and do a full search of the house." Okay, we're not searching. We've got the human remains dogs from the Met in, Mandy Chapman and her team, and you'll be working alongside them. Great. Okay. So I know Mandy very well. Lovely. She's retired now, but we worked together on that. And anyway, I radared the patio, nothing under there initially, looked at the side, found a buried dog straight away. In 10 minutes, found a buried dog in a casket, believe it or not. He had actually buried, but someone had been arrested that morning on suspicion. But he actually got put in a hotel because he wasn't a threat to anybody. He was more of he got put somewhere secure where they could keep an eye on him. And they didn't know actually what happened to Dad. So after a couple of days, the SO said, "I want the patio dug up." So he's not under there. Well, I want the patio dug up. I was okay, let's do it. So that's going to take 2 or 3 days. And we dug the patio up. There was nothing there. Found the dog. And then we got to Friday and the SO said, "Right, he's not here. I want everyone to pack up and go home." I said, "Well, I've not finished my search yet." He said, "Well, I want you packed up." I said, "I'm not putting my name to this job unless I finish the search." I say, "I've still got areas to do behind the greenhouse. I've got this to do." He said, "Well, I'm off." And he went off. And I said, "If I have to, I'll pay for my own hotel tonight. I don't care. I'm going to get this job done." So anyway, I set the radar up behind the greenhouse and I got a massive signature on the radar. And I said to Chris, "Right, set the magnetometer up, Chris," and my colleague, and he set the magnetometer up for me, and I rerun that.
What does that look like when you start getting signs that something could be there?
Yeah, like a large hoop shape. It's like if you're looking for small pipes, you get like a hoop, a sharp hoop. If you've got a body, it tends to be a long shaped hoop. Sort of, it's hyperbole, so it's reflecting. It's the radar signals being reflected back. And you know, if you're new to it, you wouldn't have a clue. But if you've been doing it many years, you know when it's a body. You can see it's a big signature. So, it's a good question, Paul. But on a magnetometer, on my one, I can see the ground, disturbed ground, showing up in blue, and I can see the actual grave. So I could see it was 0.9 of a meter deep exactly. And I said to Dr. Carl Harrison, the forensic archaeologist, I said, "Right, I think we've got it, Carl." And he said, "Well, if you can remove the concrete for me," because obviously forensic archaeologists don't carry breakers or anything, they carry toothbrushes and little fine tools. So we lifted all the slabs for Carl and he started to dig down. And then he started to see road scalpings that had been put in the like a gravelly substance, which was odd. And he carried on removing these. And then as Carl went further down into soil, there was a milk bottle in there, like a plastic, sort of 1 litre milk bottle. And we could see a piece of paper inside it. So anyway, inside there was an obituary note to his father. Right, okay, I love my father and etc. and animals, etc. And okay, got that. Carried on digging down, and lo and behold, the plastic sheet started to appear, and a wrap. He started to open it the whole way, and there was the body of Dad. And everyone thought, "Oh, he's probably murdered Dad," etc., etc. But anyway, it went to court, and this is where the media can throw things out for people on trial for murder, etc., etc., etc. You know what it's like. And actually, he just wanted to be. His dad died of natural causes. He was 91, and he just wanted to be near his dad, which is not a problem. So it's quite a sad story when you look at it. And his garden was completely trashed, and you look at it and go, well, yeah, and he had to pay back the DSS money, what he'd been still claiming for Dad. But apart from that, he didn't do nothing wrong. And he illegally buried his dad in the garden, but he actually got permission to rebury his dad in the garden.
Oh, right.
apparently, which is legal. You know, you have to get a license for it. But it was quite a sad case, quite emotional case, really, because you think he just wanted to be near his dad, and the guy, you know, we've come in and we found what we were looking for, and that was a good thing. And obviously that was another land search, but I think water searches. There was a chap called, I remember his name now, down in, it was West Mercia. I'll remember it. It'll come to a bit. A chap who was missing for 18 months in West Mercia, and the police had been searching, and I got a call one day through the database to say, Peter, the SO would like to speak to you. Would like to review the case to see where this Damien Tudge. So Damien Tudge, sorry. So I went sat with the investigation team, and I said, right, let's look at everything we've got. And we got cell site analysis across the river, but there's no passports, no bank accounts used, no ANPR on anything. So he's probably he's gone. He's not. His cars. He's probably with his car, and he may have gone in the river. But they said, but the Environment Agency said if he was in the river, they would pick up with their monitoring equipment the oil and petrol residue. They would know he was there, and they've said he's not there. Then you had a local volunteer teams searched it with a sonar, and they've searched it 12 times and they can't find anything. I said, well, let's get these people. I don't think they've got sonar like we've got, because they wouldn't be able to afford it, and it's very specialist. And let's get them on the phone. So I spoke to the chap and I said, look, I'm not knocking your search. I said, but I just need to, oh, Peter, he said, it's not sonar you've got, because they knew of me. He said, it's a fish finder. I said, great, thanks for all your hard work, because these people, volunteers, go out all hours of the night. And what people don't realise now is most police searches in the UK are being done by volunteers, because there is only 9 underwater search units left in the Britain now, 11 in the whole of the United Kingdom. So one covers Northern Ireland, one covers the whole of Scotland, and the whole of the southeast is literally blank. So I'll come on to that a bit later. But so a lot of volunteers now, Lowland Rescue, are being used for police searches, and it comes up and says police are searching the river. No, it's the guys in the red jackets and the girls who are actually volunteers, and credit to these people, because they work all hours. They don't get paid for this, and it's a free resource to the police just to call in. But in the media, you see police searching the river, helicopters and drones, etc. Well, drones don't find people underwater, nor do helicopters. Fact. So it's interesting. But anyway, I said he's going to be in the river. I said, I come down and let's do a day, and if he's there, I'll find him. And they said, okay, Pierre, we trust you to come down. So within 15 minutes, I found the first car, found a car on the bottom straight away, put a diver in. Aidan went in, dived. It was a stolen vehicle. We took the number plate off. They checked it. It was stolen a few years earlier. Carried on up, and within the same sweep, actually. So I found the first car, and then another car, and I marked it on the map, and I said we'll put a diver in. So we got the road closed off on this one. We needed to. We put the diver in, and I went in first. I dived, and I took an underwater camera down with me, and I present on this a lot to police. And I took an underwater camera down. Now we're looking for a blue car. So Damien's car was blue. Now, if you imagine. The car, when it come out, the water turned brown because the paint got stripped off of it by the acidic nature of the Black Country water in the river coming down from Birmingham area. And the car was brown. So if we had a pole camera and it was on its roof looking, we would actually see a brown car and go, it's not the one we're looking for.
Yeah.
That's the difference. So this is really important information. So anyway, I dived down and I could feel that all the windows were complete. None of the windows were broken, meaning if Damien was still in the car, if it was his car, then he's probably still in it. So I done my dive, and I couldn't get any camera view because it was pitch black, couldn't see anything. So then Rick went down and he ripped the number plate on, brought it up to the SIO. He took a screwdriver down. And I come up to brief the SO, and then it was confirmed to be Damien's number plate. So we got a crane in, we big long reach crane over the river, went down with some chains. Rick and Aidan went in, wrapped the chains, secured the chains. We lifted it out, and it was landed on the road. And lo and behold, windows popped. In the back there was a body, and it was proven to be Damien Tudge, which was a great find again, because again, Damien would have never been found without that sonar and without sort of our expertise, really. And the thing is, it just shows you that things get missed. And I've been on so many jobs where we done another recovery in Staffordshire where it had already been searched by an underwater search team, but the gun was deep down in the sill. So we got underwater melted, and I found the weapon. So it's, you know, when someone said, oh, the area's already been searched, I'm very wary of that. And I'm not criticising police divers at all, but it's more about the technology sometimes which is needed to back things up. And I know there's probably many searches that have been done around the country where potentially things have been missed because the area is too big to search, like a reservoir. You can't search a reservoir with divers. It could take months, where sonar can do that reservoir in a day and go, there's the body. It's that good. That's the importance of using technology, but you can have all the technology in the world, but if you don't know how to use it and you don't get the time on the ground to experience, then you're going to miss things.
That takes us onto bodies in water. That's something I want to ask you about. So there's a lot of confusion even among cops about how bodies behave in water. Can you explain typically what happens when somebody enters a river or a lake or even the sea?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I mean, just for the police watching and members of the public. I mean, you've got we are dealing with average pre-Nicola Bully 10 drowning victims a year. So we were the official dive team for Thames Valley Police, Hampshire Police, Surrey Police, Sussex Police, Essex and Kent. So that whole area was ours to deal with. And that would be on murder investigations, missing people, everything. So it's not just, you know, and that's what we would get called. And we would also be called out by Surrey Fire and Rescue for immediate response as well for life-saving incidents. So every single person I've ever found in water, normally, so out of them 10 a year, we would locate within probably, once we arrive on scene, which was normally within the hour, we'd be on scene. Once the sonar was deployed, probably within half an hour, we would locate or even quicker, we would locate the person. And once we put the diver in, we would pull them out within another hour. You know, it's the dressing in time. It's just getting the equipment on and doing that, but very rapid, and that can be backed up by, you know, the emergency services. I mean, we've got evidence of it, and whenever we went, we recovered quickly. Now, but all them people were the thing is, it's all about witnesses. So I went on a job one day. We had a Polish lad who drowned, and I'll never forget it. We were at a fire brigade open day when we got called out, and the witnesses, the fire service teams, were over the other side of the river looking. Now the fire service team will deploy for the first 2 hours because that's when life could be saved. And then they go back to station because obviously they've got to man fire pumps. And greatest respect for firefighters, you know. So they said, Pete, we believe he's over there. I said, I need to speak to the family. They're really upset. They don't really want to talk. I said, well, unless I get some concrete evidence it's going to draw out the search, let me talk to them. So I went and talked to the two brothers, the brother and a friend, clearly upset. And I said, can you tell me exactly, you know, where you last saw him? They walked down the dock with me because it was the River Thames. He said, off here, about 4 or 5 meters off of here. Thank you very much. Barney went in, he dived, done a grid search. I then went in and found him on the second sweep. And that's the important bit. Now, he was where he went down. So most bodies, all bodies, in fact, and will go down within a couple of meters of where they drown. So if they fall in and drown there, they will go to the bottom. They don't float unless you've got a life jacket on, because once the clothing floods, people say, oh, the clothing makes you buoyant. No, it doesn't. If you've got a buoyancy aid on, yes, it will. But if you've got a jacket, we've tested this. We've done trials on it. We with a jacket, whether it be a duck down jacket or a puffer jacket or any long coat, they will flood with water, and that becomes extremely heavy, and that will take you to the bottom. Or if you've got no clothing on hardly, you will go straight to the bottom. Now, if it was a raging torrent, and I'm talking about a raging torrent, I'm not talking about just a moving river. I'm talking about something which is a severe flood. Then the body will get tumbled along the bottom, not on the surface. It will get tumbled along the bottom until it hits a strainer or a stopper in the river. So if the river's undulating like that, the body will only go so far until it gets lodged, and the water pressure will hold it under a tree stump or something until the pressure's released. Now, that body, this is the key. There is no exact science. I don't care what anybody says. There is no science on how long a body takes to come up. So in the summertime, they tend to come up quicker. Body, we dealt with one in Thames Valley. It took 3 months to pop. So
why did it rise to the surface?
Because the body decomposes from inside out. Now everyone's got different makeup. You've got larger people, slimmer people, different body masses, etc., etc. So as your body decomposes, it will start to bloat, and you will end up being sadly like a bloated still. The skin turns black and horrible colours, and that will then bloat, and you will rise to the surface. You become slightly buoyant, and that's what brings people to the surface.
I guess it depends as well on whether the body is lodged as well, or caught on anything in the water.
It will, absolutely. I mean, if the typical strainer where you've got a tree trunk in a river, the amount of pressure coming down the water, it can hold them down there. And that's the difficult thing. Searching around strainers is particularly difficult because a sonar, or like reeds, a sonar won't see into the strainer. You'll need to put a diver into it, but that's highly dangerous. It depends on if you can't dive in flooded rivers. You cannot dive in a flooded water. So the rules are, if the water's risk assessment, if it's really rushing down, you can't put a diver into a strainer. You can put divers into slow moving water, no problem at all. So you have to be very, very careful. But there is no exact science. So I say that everyone we always find them within not close. And it's about the witnesses. A witness drowning, so they went in there. With sonar, it's quick to search anyway. It's not a problem at all. I'd searched one where we had a little lad. Not a little lad. He was dad had been taking some drugs, and he took his son fishing, and he fell over the back. And sadly, I had to go and talk to we went there the night before, and it was like 3 a.m. And I said, let's wait till the morning. Let's talk to the little boy, and I'll talk to him and find out where his daddy went in. So we did. So I spoke to the little lad, and he pointed the rough area. We run the sonar, and I got him straight away, and that was it. And that was a horrible job because I had to go and tell the family that I'd found him, on the sonar. And I remember Mum and wife just collapsed in front of me. Literally, as I told you, I had a police officer with me, and I had to deliver the message, which is I find that particularly tough. I don't like doing that, and I have to do it many times because a lot of the time when you're on these scenes, you've got the family there. So we had one in Virginia water where they swam out 200 meters, a young boy and girl on their first date. They stripped down to their underwear and just swam out. She was the strong swimmer. He got out and he couldn't swim anymore. She was trying to hold him up. Sadly, he went to the bottom, and we then got called with fire rescue, and we found him again within half an hour with a sonar. To search that lake, it would take weeks. You just couldn't do it with divers, but the sonar.
So if you're a police officer, you've obtained a MISPA report or concerns for welfare about somebody that has fallen into water or has probably gone into water. The most important thing is to find out exactly where they've fallen in or suspected to have fallen in.
Absolutely, yeah. This is the vital information we need, and then the thing is, it's what resources do you put on the ground to actually search? Because it's okay going up and down in boats, but they're not going to be found. They're on the bottom, and once it gets to more than 2 meters deep, then it's very difficult to find them. And a remote operated vehicle, the mini submarines are no good for searching rivers because it needs sonar to search rivers, and it needs the right expertise, it needs the right equipment. And then you need a diver to actually go in the water. So you might find them on sonar, but you've still got to put a diver in to actually do the recovery because there may be suspicious circumstances. And whenever you retrieve a body, how we look at if it's suspicious, then we use metal detectors as well. So we'll search the area of metal, make sure there's no knife or other sort of weapon, a spanner or a hammer or something that you could take the body out. Oh, he's got head injuries, but then you forget to do that area, and there could be vital evidence laying in the bottom, what's forgotten about, and then eventually it just disappears under the silt. So it's really important to get this right.
I know we've talked about buoyancy in clothing, but does clothing affect where bodies are likely to end up at all when they enter the water?
Well, as you initially go in, you might struggle to either firstly, if you fell in a river, you're not just going to drown, you're going to struggle. Now that's struggling. Now, most people can swim. As the clothing gets heavier, the best way, if you ever fall in the river, is just to float. You can lay face down and hold your breath and just lift your face. You will float. You won't go to the bottom. It's drown proof. Or you can roll on your back. You won't sink. As long as if you hold your face in the water, hold your nose, you will lay there because you've got air in your body. And then every now and then just lift up, take a breath of air and lay there. It's not a very nice thing to do, but at least you're going to drift and you can use your legs like a frog just to get to the edge.
You make it sound so easy, by the way. I can't do that. I sink.
No, it's a fight for survival, isn't it? And I think the thing is, Paul, it's the initial. If you've got heavy clothing or you fell in, most people would struggle. So you'd struggle to stay up, and you might go a few meters in that initial bit. But then once you take that gasp of water, then that's it. You will float, you will sink to the bottom, and you will stay there. You won't move. If the river's moving slightly, but again, lots of people have drag marks where they're sort of slowly taken along the bottom, on the back of the knuckles. So yeah, it's not nice. Yeah. But there's no exact science. There's nothing anywhere because everything's different. Everybody's made up differently.
Right, okay. Yeah, because I'm just thinking there, again, for police officers are taking MISPA reports. There should be as detailed as possible anyway. I think I remember, was it the Nicola Bulley case where, and we'll touch on this a little bit later anyway, I think there was descriptions about wearing really high boots and water could have filled the boots really quickly and weighed her down. And
I mean, if Nicola was wearing a heavy coat, which apparently she was, her jacket would flood extremely quickly. Boots, because Wellington boots, if you had Wellington boots on, there's a lot of volume in them, so a lot of water can go into. It's like a diver. If you're wearing a dry suit on the edge of a river, it should always be zipped up, because if you fell in, you see people wearing dry suits, that's like a big bag of water you carry. It needs to be zipped up, and any water rescue suit. So yeah, clothing, it will get very heavy. It will get very heavy, and it will take you to the bottom. It's not like the John Wayne films where you see a cowboy get shot and he gets carried on down the river, and he's sort of, once you drown, and you go to the bottom, and that's fact. And it's said, funny enough, in the College of Police report that into Nicola Bulley, it said that it says in the report most bodies are found within 100-meter radius of where they go missing. Fact. Fact.
We've talked about how effective sonar is so far in detecting bodies underwater, but what can cause false positives?
Right. It depends on the operator. Depends. False positive. So if you've got a person laying with their arms by their side, and they look like a tree, a piece of wood, a bit of a not a tree, not a tree branches, but a straight piece of like a tree. If you find an object like that, you've still got to put a diver in. You've got to confirm what that object is, but most people, I mean, whenever I detect a body, you can always see the shape very clearly. So you'll see the bent. Normally they've got bent legs. Normally you can see the arms, the classic arm signature sticking out. You'll see the head. Whenever very seldom have I ever put divers in on nothing. Because I can measure, so I can measure the length, what I'm actually looking for. So if I'm looking for someone 6'2", I can say that object's 6'2". If it's something bigger and it's 3.2 meters, I know that that's not what we're looking for. That's the beauty of sonar. I can measure, I can enhance, and I just don't get them. It's always whenever I'm looking for a drowning victim, I see it straight away.
If a cop arrives at a scene where someone believed to have entered the water, what should they do to first of all, preserve evidence and improve the chances of successful recovery?
Right. Well, an area always, because the thing is, if it's a witness drowning, obviously, and it's a witness drowning, then that's not so much suspicious. But if it's a missing person, a young woman or something like that, then that area needs to be taped off straight away to preserve any, fibers or whatever in the area. That's the key. But it's preserve the scene is the most important bit. The first thing for a witness drowning is straight away for the emergency services arrive. Don't mark the position. Mark the tree on the opposite side of the bank. This is where we are. This is our reference point. Or even if you need to move, get a stick and stick it in the bank or throw a jacket down to mark this is where they went in. And then the emergency services, when they respond, I mean, like I said, sadly now, there are very few dive units left now. So the initial response will be from fire service. They will turn up. And if it's a deep river, the chance of recovering that person is gone. Then you've got the volunteers from Lowland who will turn up, but again, they can't go underwater. So sadly, around the country now, what is happening? Many forces are not putting dive units in, and this is fact. And I think there's an unofficial pop-up policy where they're being left to an initial search for a few days on the surface. Looks good for the media. But then what will happen? The body will decompose, and most bodies, again, confirmed in the COP report, are found by members of the public. Most underwater searches are unsuccessful. Ours are always successful because we've got a track record of that because we carry the equipment, we carry the expertise, and they're always recovered. I think there's one we couldn't find in a flooded river, and I mean this was during COVID. This was, and when I say flooded, the fire brigade boat was even struggling to hold on its engine in the river. The current was going so quick. We found him, but we couldn't retrieve him because we couldn't put a diver in, so we had to let him wash down the river. And eventually he was found downriver a few days later, but it was impossible to dive.
Are there any clues or red flags that officers should be looking out for that might indicate what happened before somebody's gone into the water?
I think it's again, is it a suspicious death? I think really, Paul. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Is if it's a young lady last seen, and the scene preservation is the most important bit. If it's suspicious, if a young girl's gone missing and she was missing on this towpath, then it's highly likely that they're in the water, and that means the whole of the towpath being sealed off for CSI investigation straight away. You can't miss a trick. That's the important bit. If you see anything, don't touch anything. You see a phone, don't touch the mobile, because the trace evidence, obviously the ear prints, the fingerprints, everything else, what's on that could be your vital evidence. And that was the thing about the Nicola Bulley case. The phone was just picked up. No trace evidence. The bench wasn't checked for that. Should have been a crime scene tent gone over that to actually gone. Something's not right here. The dog harness fibres. The opportunities were lost because the pollster decided that it wasn't important, and the SIO agreed. And I've never ever worked on a job where, on a murder case where, fibres aren't important, really.
We might as well move on to the Nicola Bulley case now, but who made the decision to touch the belongings?
No idea. What I was shocked about was when when we got there, Dave Swan, one of the photojournalists from the Sun newspaper, he said, "You know what, Peter, come on." He said, "Nothing's been going on." He said, "We've seen no search activity for days." I said, "What do you mean nothing?" He said, "There's no one here." He said, "You've arrived and the world's media have dropped here."
Are you able to give a brief outline on Nicola Bulley, just in case, especially newer in-service cops are unaware of Nicola?
Sure. One outline from the search point of view, just talking about how
the case and how she was reported missing and the developments from there.
Nicola Bulley went missing on the 27th of January 2023. Initially reporting missing, her phone was found still on a Teams call on a bench. The dog harness was found on the floor in front of the bench. And there was a couple of witnesses. There was a scream. Witnesses said they heard a couple of screams within the area at the same time. There was a police car had dash cam footage apparently in the school car park from a local sergeant, but that's never been disclosed. I think that's one of the vital evidence there that's never been disclosed to the public. So there was a police vehicle parked within the school. He knew Nicola, but that's never been disclosed to the public. What the footage? There was a man in black seen walking along the path by witnesses that morning in all black and wearing a beanie hat. Again, that's never been officially apparently followed up. Lots of very odd things went on. And then Nicola couldn't be found. They called in, I think it was reported back to the school. The husband came down, the partner came down and was called down. And then they realised straight away they thought she'd gone in the assumption was made by the police search advisor, as in the report, that she's been taken down the river and gone over the weir. Now, the police search advisor, firstly, he's not a diver. He's got no expertise on water, but he's made that assumption. And that was the working hypothesis. She's gone in at the bench and she's gone down the river. Now,
how did they come to the conclusion that she'd even entered the water? Because I think a dog was found as well around that time, and the dog was dry, I think.
The dog was dry, and this is the confusing bit. It was immediately treated just as she's fallen in at the bench. That's it. There was no other evidence whatsoever. It should have been sealed off straight away. The whole area should have been sealed off. This is a potential young girl who potentially could have been kidnapped, pretty young girl, lady murdered, and there was nothing treated like that at all. And the assumption was we're searched down the river. So apparently, I think it was that day they put divers in at the bench. There was nothing there. But bearing in mind, all the media starting to roll up, maybe on day two, but everyone's trampsing all over that area. There's no crime scene preservation potential. There was no search done upriver from the bench, because when we got there, we were briefed. I'll go into that. But for 10 days, no search was made upriver. You don't assume that someone's just gone in at the bench. It's the stretch of river is the important bit. So anyway, they searched based, by the looks of it, it was surface search. So they said they dived the area in front of the bench two times, confirmed by the College of Police and Review, definitely in the review, and it was televised as well. That okay. Now the family got extremely frustrated because the police were not giving out any updates. It turned into a PR disaster for them. The family were giving updates, and the family friends were giving updates from the bench. There was no media updates. They were very sketchy with everything.
Did they have a family liaison officer at the time?
They had an FLO, yeah, they did, but it was just they were frustrated with the search because there was no answers coming forward. So they contacted us. Now, again, I never ever contact people. That's what people said. We got trolled online by people. I never. Now we had I just want to go back to this. This is an important bit. I had my book launch on the Friday, on the 2nd. I got contacted on the Sunday by the family. That book took me a year to write, and we had a big book launch. And then on the Sunday, I got contacted by Paul, the partner, and he said, "Could you, please come up and help us? How much do you want?" I said, "Well, we won't charge you. I will do it for nothing for you. We will help you," because I could see that agony they were suffering. I said, "As long as you can just put us, in accommodation, that would be appreciated." He said, "Well, Emma White's got a farm. 4 guys can stay there." I said, "Well, I'll pay for my own hotel. That's fine. I've got no problem with that."
How did they find you?
We're known, we got a big Facebook following, 30,000 or whatever. We're known in the sort of underwater search field. So it's whenever someone goes missing, Facebook goes mad. Can you help? Can you help?
Yeah.
We get all these messages, and we got 24-hour control room because we are an underwater search team. We are covering the whole. Everybody knows us because underwater search comes up straight away. So I said we can't just barge into a police operation if I speak to the police, if you speak to the police, see what they say. So the police were very reluctant, but eventually I got a call from the police search advisor in the afternoon. He said, "You can come up. We will task you with where to search." And he sent me an email to say, "You're responsible for your own health and safety. It's confidential. You mustn't give any operational information away to the media or anything like that." That's fine. And then obviously I was due the following week to do some press interviews for the Daily Mail. Had just serialised my book and on a double spread a couple of weekends earlier. And then I was due to do some radio interviews, and I had to ring the publishers and say, "Right, you're going to have to cancel everything because I can't be seen to be promoting a book while I'm up here."
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. People come out and say, "You're doing this, promote your book." I didn't ever even mention my book. My book was written, on my life, and I cancelled everything. There was never once was it mentioned.
How did it come about you giving, but you would speak to the media?
Right, I just want to cover
frequently. How did that come about?
Yeah, I just want to cover that off, actually. So anyway, my team arrived on Sunday night. I flew up in the morning and landed at Emma White's farm, got met by the Pulsar. And Lee picked me up, one of my colleagues, and drove me to the scene. He said, "There's press everywhere. They're all waiting." And I said, "Well, okay, but we won't be talking to the media. I'll talk to the police. We'll get that sorted out." So as I arrived, the cameras were out. They were very respectful, I must say. They didn't bother me, but they were just photographing. So I went in our control room, mobile ops unit, and I said to the team, "Right, this is what we're going to be doing, da-di-da. I'll speak to the Pulsar in a minute." So the Pulsar said, "I want you to search downriver. You're going downriver." I said, "Well, we really need to search the hot zone. That's the area where she fell in. We've searched it. You don't need to do that. I want you going downriver towards the sea because we believe she's been washed downriver." Okay, fine. So then I said, "Right, I need a press officer to deal with this media, please. Can you get me a press officer? And I'd like to speak to the SIO," which was quite normal for operations. I've got good relationships with senior investigating officers, and they trust us with confidential information. They will give us everything we need, which we're used to. And he said, "No press officer available." Right, okay. "So what about the media?" He said, "Well, it's up to you." That was it, literally. And I had witnesses to that conversation. And then I said, I need to speak to the SIO. She won't talk to you. But okay, at least I know where I stand, I thought. So we walked down to the river, and bearing in mind my team are ex-military and former police divers, etc. I said, this is unbelievable. And we walked down. I climbed down the riverbank, and we had media cameras everywhere. They wouldn't even put a cordon in place, nothing. And they were everywhere. And there was no police officers around. That's what people think. There was none around. He then got in his car and drove off. And we went down. I looked across to the weir, and I said to the team, I said, there's no way Nicola's gone over this weir. I mean, the river's not moving. It's not moving. And anyway, we went down the river, and we could see the bottom, Paul. We could see the bottom in many places. We had the sonar, and I'm looking. I'm glued to the screen. I can see every stick and stone on the bottom. And we got down to a place called Cartford Bridge. And as we were going down the river, there was a couple of police officers walking along, but they're local patrol beat officers, because they got body armour on. They're not search officers. They just got body armour on, and just walking up and down the bank, and that was it. Way back on the footpath, and I called one over just for an update. She said, I can't come near the river. I can't. I'm not water trained. It's like, okay. So clearly they weren't searching. And then as we got to Cartford Bridge, we had to get out of our boat because we could see the stones. It was just so shallow. We grounded out. And I said to the team, I said, there's no way. There's no way she's in this part of the river, not the tidal section. She's up. She's up. If she's in the water, she's probably up there still. So we finished that, and I got back that evening, and then the pulser come over, and he said, I just need you to sign this to make sure you're responsible for your own health. It's a bit of paper, and it was you're responsible for your own health and safety, risk assessments, etc. Okay, I leant against side truck, signed it off, but okay, there you go. And they walked off, and then the following morning, I said to him in the morning, I want to search from. That's it. I think it was that conversation that night. I said, in the morning, I want to search the hot zone, the bench. He said, no, I don't want you doing that area. I want you going from the bench upriver to Rowan Water Caravan Park. And I said, well, what we'll do, we'll go past there.
Why do you think they were so reluctant to allow you near to the bench?
I don't know, and this is what's obviously built my suspicions now, because I come onto this. This was it, and I said to the team, they haven't searched from the bench upriver for the last 10 days. What's going on? Why not? That's because we've got no evidence. I worked on a job called Tom Potter, and I was told by the pulser to go downriver. And I said, I want to go down from where he was last seen. He said, no, the dog indicated here. I want you to search downriver. I said, well, I'd like to go. He said, no, I want you to search here. This is in Bedfordshire. So we searched downriver. There's nothing there. He said, well, you must be there. I said, there was nothing there. 2 weeks later, 100 metres up from where we give him the entry point, the guy was laying in the reeds, exposed. Because again, they relied on the dog. What we should do is we go from the last point seen, the last point that they were seen, downriver and upriver. But Nicola wasn't. The last time she was seen was actually up in the top field, not at the bench. So this is the thing, by witnesses. So that was messed up, and they did not want us in that hot zone. So anyway, we got in the boat at Rowan Water, and I got all the aerial pictures. The media were taking drone footage all day. So we went down the river, and I said, right, take me to the hot zone. There's no police around. I'm going in that. We are going to search that area. I'm not happy with this. So everyone had gone. So the pulsar had gone, and at because it was different pulsar, and there's no one around. So we went down. So we went past the bench, not sonaring at this bit. We went down to the bottom corner. Now, you've got to imagine the bench, it goes down probably about 100 metres to a corner, goes around, and then it leads down to a weir. Now, once we got to the bottom corner, we tried getting up towards the weir, but the water was so shallow. I mean, it was literally a few inches deep and clear. And I said to him, there is no way if Nicola's got over this, impossible. And I was told by the pulsar it was about 6, 8 inches higher on the day. which is still extremely shallow and slow. So, and there'd been no rain, there'd been no storms, there'd been nothing since to cause any flooding. Anyway, we started the sonar up, and then I tuned it in, and we went upriver towards the bench. And as we went upriver, we passed a little bit called the island, what I call the island, about approximately, not exactly, approximately 75 meters from the bench. That was John Don GPS coordinates. So from the bench, the interesting point. Now, bearing in mind, the police have said they've searched the area in front of the bench twice. In front of the bench. Now, the island is 75 meters from the bench. Imagine that. So as I got past the island, I got a shadow. I got an indication on my sonar, and I said to the lads, "I've got something here, but just carry on. I can't quite see it. We need to move the boat across." We went up the river. We done a U-turn at the bench. We tracked back down. Now, I targeted my search. It was either 1026 or 1028. But anyway, as we come down from the bench down to the island, there was what I'm looking for. Now, this was 6 minutes into my search. 6 minutes, just 6 minutes. And what I've got is a classic signature of two arms sticking out, symmetrical, sticking out, which I'm only too familiar with that signature. I know it's a body straight away. I said to my team, I found her. And they've looked at it and gone, yeah. And I've gone, right, what I do, I want to get a couple of more scans. We'll get a couple more. So this is 10:32 in the morning. So then at 10:53, and what you've got to realise, my sonar is time stamped and geo-referenced via GPS. It cannot be changed. The metadata can't be changed. It's as it was. And WhatsApp messages, I've got all the original WhatsApp. So I called the police search advisor, and I either sent him the image first, or I screenshotted it, or it was either the call first or the WhatsApp, but within seconds. And I sent him the actual image, and I said, I think I found her. And he goes, right. I said, we need to put a diver in. We're going to get our divers ready. And a similar sort of conversation. He said, you are not to dive. You are not to dive. We will dive. And he made it very, very clear. And as I've said before, fair enough, it's your operation. Okay, that's not a problem. Your police operation, you want to put police divers in. No issues with that. So anyway, he said they won't be here for a while because they're in another location at the moment. So eventually they turned up, and about 12 something they turned up. They turned up and they dived at 13:16, I think it was. Anyway, what I did before they dived, I had a meeting with the supervisor, their dive supervisor. I said, I've put a stick in the bank, and this is the rough area. Now, you never give an exact area, because what you got to realise with sonar, my GPS reading is coming from the computer at the front of the boat.
Oh, right, okay.
The actual missile, the towfish, what we call the towfish, is the back of the boat, a couple of meters away. So that positioning is not exact there. And then you've got you've got a GPS fluctuation between 2 and 5 meters. So they're divers, they got their own sonar, they know what they're doing. So I said, excuse me, roughly. So I've been talking for a long time. So we put the stick in, and it's clearly referenced in the pictures. So anyway, what you got to bear in mind is now, let's briefly go back to the media bit. So there was no media control. So the media would come to me for updates, and the family friends. No police officer was there telling me not to speak to the media. Now, bearing in mind, this is the man who's worked on police operations for 3 decades. If a police officer says to me, Peter, do not talk to the media, I'm going to go, more my reputation. I'd never do it anyway, but I wouldn't do it. So no one did. So I know a lot of the media because I've done documentaries and things, and with the police, I must say, killer at the crime scene stuff. Now, I don't want to be arrogant. I don't want to be this guy, because they'd make things up then. I thought I'd give them facts. Now, I'm not giving them operational information. So the only operational information, what is in the email, confirmed that if you've any operational information must not be fed to the family or the media, which I didn't. So that was operational. So I found potential target. So what I did, while the divers got ready, I then carried on upriver because the media said, "What are they doing?" I said, "Oh, I don't know, doing a bit of diving." I carried on upriver to take the interest away from the police divers. Anyway, we're going up towards our own water. After a very short time, John, my dive supervisor, ex-police officer, police diver, said, "Pete," he said, "I've just had a call." He said, "There's nothing there." I said, "What do you mean nothing there, John?" Now, John's not a sonar specialist. He's a diver. He said, "Well, there's nothing there." I said, "There's got to be something because sonar can't be created by nothing."
What search
You've got
area
to have...
was it? What
Sorry?
What search area are we talking that they had to see?
75 metres from the bench,
Right.
downstream in the non-tidal section. The water's not moving. There's a classic picture of our boat, and those who know boats, it was tied up on the riverbank, and the boat is sticking straight out into the river. Now, if there'd been a current, it would have been turned sideways. It was literally face out. It was not moving. So I said, "It can't be." I said, "Okay, fair enough. Maybe I'm wrong, but it can't be nothing." I said to my team, "Something's not right here." So anyway, it was really cold in February, and we'd been looking at a screen and been up all morning. I said, "Let's go back and get a coffee." And as I climbed out the river, as I climbed out of the boat, I got caught by a journalist. Nice lady, I think it's GB News, I think. She said to me, "Peter, can I just have a quick update or whatever?" Now, bearing in mind, there's no police updating anybody. I goes, "Yeah, okay, sure." And I'd done this. She said, "So what have you said?" Now, the police divers just told me that there's nothing there. There's nothing there.
Is this where
So
you've
I've
said
gone,
that she's not in the
yeah,
river?
the famous, what everyone's, said you said she wasn't in the river. So I've said I can categorically state she's not in the river because you've got to trust the police. Police have just told me I doubted myself a bit. Maybe I'm wrong, but there's nothing there. Can I just adjust my seat? My seat's gone down, and so there's nothing there, and that's the statement I made. There's nothing there, and also it's confidential information that I'm not going to tell her that I've actually found a target and I believe it's Nicola, because that's operational. I would never ever do that. So I've then walked back to the command unit, and again, this is all witness. We're sitting there having a cup of tea. I said, "Right, I'm not happy with this. We need to go back down that river. I want to get close to the riverbank. I want to get a better image of this. Wait for the police divers to go, and we're going to go back down this afternoon. I'm not wearing this." And so anyway, wait for everybody to go, pack up. Everyone went. Media went as well. We got back in the boat, and they took me back down again. And we come back to the bench, and we scanned downriver. And I said, "Right, get me as tight to the bank as you can, really, really tight, because I've got the shadows, but I want the body as much as I can get." And we went over this again, and I got a great image. I got a really good image. And I said, "Right, this is her without a doubt." And I said, "We've got to re-dive this in the morning, but I don't trust anyone around here," because I'd never said that about the police. I've worked with the police. I've got the greatest respect for the police. I work with them all the time still on our other projects. So we got a big security team we work with as well. I've got various parts of the business. And the following morning, the pulsar arrived, and I said, "Right," I didn't go into detail. I said, "I want to go back down the hot zone today, and I want to put our divers in at the weir, and I want to search upriver." He said, "You're not diving." He said, "You're going home today." And I knew that something's being covered up here. I knew that, and my team, and they all agreed. He said, "This absolutely stinks. What's going on?"
Was it being covered up, or were they just really unhappy with the word into the reporter?
No, I think personally, this is my personal view, and I think it'll be proven one day. I think what's happened, they've searched for 10 days, and I think the search was very sketchy, because again, when the police diver dived that morning on my target, my diver, one of my divers said, he called it a chip shop dive. He said they were only in a few minutes. Now, in the College of Policing report, it came out that the diver dived and said the water, in fact, there was I can't remember the exact words, nothing in the river. It's not very often that I dive in a clear and unobstructed body of water with such a flat bottom. Now, that's interesting, because Nicola, when you see her on my report and my live sonar image, she's actually laying within a horseshoe-shaped banked area in a sandbank. That is not flat. And that water was not clear and unobstructed. That water was dark, and we couldn't see through it. So that's very misleading. And then they said at the coroner's inquest that they dived on the exact GPS coordinates that SGI gave them, and there was nothing there. Now, we never gave them GPS coordinates. We gave them a stick, and they used that in the report on the exact GPS coordinates. So that's a misleading statement altogether. Now, we'll come back to the 8th, Wednesday the 8th. So Monday the 6th, we searched downriver. Tuesday the 7th, we searched upriver, but then I decided to take it on myself and do the hot zone, which was where you would always start anyway, but they didn't want us in that hot zone. We then were told to go home. Now, that day, I went back to the command trailer and I met the family, and I was talking to the sister, the brother-in-law, and Paul, and the FLO was there. And Paul was pleading with them to actually search the sheds in the village. He said, "You've not searched the village." He was getting really upset. "I want the shed search for Nicola in the village. We can't do that without a warrant." That's what the FLO said. And I said, "Sorry, of course you can. You don't need a warrant. You just could bang on the door and ask someone, do you mind? We're looking for a missing lady."
Some voluntary searches.
Voluntary. If someone says, "No, you can't," then you go and get a warrant to do it. There's something not quite right there. But when a mother is so a missing lady, no one is going to refuse. If the police come around and say, "Can we search your shed? We're looking for a missing lady," I'd say, "Help yourself. Not a problem. You know, anything I can do to help." Of course you would. So that was again. And then this was the other bit. I said, "You need to get a senior officer down here to actually talk to the family and let them know what is going on, because it's crazy. You know, no one's updating anybody. No one knows what's going on." So anyway, we were effectively sent home. But that afternoon, I'm walking around the wood near the river with a family friend and a member of my team, and we're walking around. And firstly I got a stick and I threw it in at the riverbank at the bottom of the bench. Now, again, in the College of Policing, the review, they said the water at the bottom of the bench was 4.6 metres deep in front of the bench. Now, if you look at the pictures, it was about 8 inches deep. Now, that was misleading. In the middle of the river, it's deep, but if she had fallen in at the bench, she would have stood up and self-rescued. There's a big rock shelf. Fact. I threw a stick in. I stayed there for 20 minutes with a member of the family friend, and we watched the stick. The stick didn't move. The stick done a very slow circle and came back to its original position, but it did not go down the river. And that I published that. I put that in the newspapers, used that. I mean, that's the other bits right. So anyway, we went for a walking around, and I suddenly saw some reeds in front of a tree stump. And I thought, that looks out of place.
How far away was that from the bench?
From the bench, probably 20, 30, probably 15 metres.
All right, so not
from
far.
the bench, yeah, 15 metres. So I got a stick and I scraped away the leaves, and I found some disturbed ground. I could see it, and that's what I do. So I carefully scraped it away and down, and Lee got me a scraper, and I took it away to about 12 inches square, and I started going down to follow the cut marks down, which you would, to check. And I say I work with forensic archaeologists all the time. This is what I do. That's what people think we are, just water, as you know, you can hear from my background. And a police officer who was an inspector attached to the underwater search unit, he said, "Right, what are you doing?" I said, "I found some disturbed ground." He said, "Fill it in and walk away. Fill it in and walk," really aggressive, and I mean aggressive. Fill it in and walk away. I said, "This needs to be looked at. Fill it in and walk away." I said, "This needs checking, and it needs, are you not going to make a note of it?" And he just walked off. That was the attitude I was dealing with. And when the College of Policing report review was published, this was, my lawyers are working on it at the moment. This is one of the most defamatory documents you could ever see. I mean, I was named 58 times within the review. My company was named 30 times in the review. And they said that Peter Faulding told a family friend that he had found a body deposition site. Totally wrong, totally misleading. And what I in fact said, this area needs checking because it could be evidence related to Nicola. That's what I said.
Would the College of Policing have to have obtained a witness statement to that effect from the person that you were allegedly speaking to?
Absolutely. So the person who's gave that witness statement, and the beauty of it, I'm preparing court papers at the moment because the damage to my reputation was international. A few days after I left the scene, I was suspended from the National Crime Agency database that I'd been on since 2001.
I remember that.
In the report, they said to me that I'd been on there since 2008. That was wrong, and I've got the evidence of all that. And then that was leaked. It was leaked to the media by a law enforcement source to discredit me. Now, what you've got to think about here, I'm now no longer fit to go to an inquest because I've now been suspended as an expert. So I can't give my evidence now at an inquest. So that's now, I'm null and void. So, because they knew that I would bring this evidence up that I found her. So that was confidential information. I'm not going to be thinking, I've got nowhere to go with this. So I've then looked forward to the College of Policing review appointment in London. So I took an ex-chief officer with me, and as a witness, because he said to me, "You've been stitched up." And I was getting phone calls from lots of senior cops, senior military people saying, "Peter, really sorry to hear the way you've been treated, and this is not good. This is not good at all. You've been thrown under the bus, and be prepared to fight this in court. You might have to." Because they're circled the wagons, they're covering their own backs, they're covering their own failures. That's what they're doing. So we went. Firstly, I got an email one day from the College of Police saying, "We need you to sign an NDA," which I went back and said, "Sorry, not taking part. I'm not signing an NDA." And then I got another one accidentally sent to me, PF questions. It was on a sheet of A4 paper, the questions they were going to pose to me. And I saw it, I was sitting on my laptop and it came through and I got, "Oh, wow." And I opened it and saved it straight away. 5 minutes later, they recalled the message.
What did they want you to sign an NDA for if it's for a report that's going to be made public anyway?
Exactly. Well, we'll come on to this, Paul. So I didn't know. So I said I needed a witness to go to London. So they arranged a meeting in a hotel in London. And I'm thinking, why am I not going to the College of Policing to do this interview? Why am I at a hotel? This is odd. It's firstly, a hotel's not secure. It's going to be wherever. So we wait to get there. So we put suits and ties on. We went there. And I was thinking I was going to meet the lead people from the college. But I met two detectives and they come in and because we got sent the questions, we responded to the questions prior so I couldn't get ambushed. Everything was laid out carefully with all the documents. I've released that into the public on our website under Nicola Bulley. So I've put all the evidence into the public domain now so everybody can see it. I wouldn't normally do that, but it's to protect my own professional reputation. So we went into London and we went to a standard conference room, and I'm thinking, this is not an idea. We could be being bugged to anything here. I'm not happy with this, but they put a little recorder on the table and we're talking. And she said, right, I'm just asking you, you've refused to sign an NDA before. I'm asking you again to sign an NDA. And I said, I'm refusing. She said, well, I'm going to ask you again. And you might come up again. I said, I'm not signed an NDA. And then my witness turned around to them and said, excuse me, you're not running this the way you should be. And she said, and who are you? And he was an ex-chief officer, ex-military guy as well. And it's like very high ranking. It's like, oh, sorry, sir. Okay. And that was that. And we went through and they asked me 4 times within that meeting about an NDA. Now, in the 10 questions or 11 or 12 questions I got, there was not one question relating to my search anywhere. Not one question. Everything was, why did you choose to speak to the media? Why did you go against the police narrative? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? It was shocking. And I'm just thinking, something's not right here. And then I said at the end, so we prepared all this thing. I said, I'll refer you to pages this. And I had the images of the initial shadow images. So we held back the proper picture of the body. I just wanted, we sort of see how interested they really are in my search. And I said to them, you are aware that I probably found Nicola or whatever, similar language on that day. And they weren't aware. No. And I said, I need to show you some images on laptop. You got 5 minutes because we got to vacate this room. We got to vacate the room. This is an inquiry. We got to vacate the room. Unbelievable. And I quickly opened the laptop and they just weren't interested. And they looked at it and go, yeah, okay, thanks. I said, look, you need to come back to me to look at this evidence. It's really, really, really important. You need to see it. And I said, I'm going to write to the coroner. We do what you want. I said, well, is there a format? I said, no, if you want to write to the coroner, you write to the coroner. And that was it. So it went on. And then I got another one saying that the report's going to be published and you sort of maybe criticised it or whatever, it's something in it, or I can't remember the exact wording. And so I'm not having this. You need to see the live data. You can't look at this without live data. You need to see my live computer. So I wrote a letter on the 27th of October and I said to them, I'm pleading with you basically to look at this data. You need to see. And within 5 days, they come back and said, we've spoken to experts, unnamed, by the way, a government sonar expert, and both have said there's nothing, it doesn't look like human form from a PDF image. From a PDF image, we've shown the family and they're clearly upset. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute, and you may be criticised in the report, and they were meant to give me fair notice of that report. So, and when I read that, I thought, right, this is a total frame up here. So I then decided to do my own podcast about the day I found Nicola Bulley with a YouTuber guy, just to put it out there. And I then got an email at 2:45 on the day before the release of the College of Police embargoed report, the finished report. Bearing in mind I should get due notice to actually comment or make any changes that may be defamatory or whatever about me. And they sent it to me at 2:45, embargoed, no right to reply, and it was being released to the world's media the following day. Now, for all you police officers out there listening and the public, this is the best bit. Not exactly 2 weeks, a couple of weeks before the College of Police in Review was going to be published, I got contacted by Sky News to say, a journalist in there, Peter, just to let you know, they're running a closed press conference today about your sonar images. Really? And he said, I'm not sure what it's about, but they're going to show us some sonar images of yours. So they held a closed press conference about me saying Peter Faulding will claim to have found Nicola. We've had experts look in, so there's nothing there. So they they're directing the narrative for the media already prior to release of the report, which is totally shocking. So they're already telling the media that there's nothing there ready for the actual the whole thing. Now, months later, I was actually sent an FOI because a member of the public, put an FOI in because they weren't happy about the Nicola Bulley case. And it confirmed the press conference was held, but they only confirmed that it was to brief the media on the release, where you wouldn't do that in a briefing, you just send them an email, and to do with sonar images. That was the only question they answered in the FOI. Were you involved in the search for Lancashire? No comment, no comment, no comment. So that I've got that as evidence as well. Then when it got to the College of Policing review on the day, they stood up and a journalist said, this report is clearly pointing at Peter Faulding, the independent search experts. It's really trashing him, basically. They're saying names. Well, I'll correct you on that, Sir Andy Marsh said. And we're not critical of him, yet the whole report just destroyed my reputation. And it was full of lies. And they said I signed an NDA. I never signed an NDA. And the other thing is they've never been able to produce, although we've asked for it at the College of Policing Review, they've never asked for it. They've never been able to produce that so-called NDA that I signed. So the college have listened to Lancashire Police without verifying any of these details. They've published a damning report about me. In the report, it says that Peter Faulding come up and he was talking to the media. He did this, he did that. Everything was about me. And when the divers dived, they said it was tree branches. So, firstly, in the letter they sent to me on the 2nd of November, there was nothing there. Now it's tree branches. And the point is, even if this wasn't Nicola, but it was, they've suppressed evidence from the public. Again, a bit like the post office inquiry and all these other scandals. This evidence has been suppressed completely. And that's why I've called for the Home Affairs Select Committee to pull these people before the Home Affairs Select Committee to be questioned. And because my professional reputation was tarnished, that's why I'm instructing solicitors to act on my behalf completely in this whole case. It's absolutely a complete whitewash.
Do you have any regrets?
Well, interesting. People say, do I have any regrets? What mistakes I made? Well, I spoke to the media apart from that, but that wasn't my fault because the media they should have been, and that was acknowledged in the COP report, that they should have had a press officer down there. It was acknowledged by them. I don't in ways because what I'm hoping is now what happened as well. And then a few days after the review, because Sir Andy Marsh said that we've passed it up to the NCA and this expert is no longer an expert. So all the work I've done, served this country for 3 decades in this specialist field, that work's now been written off, supposedly. I then got a letter recommended by ACPO that private contractors mustn't be used. So Sussex Police, Surrey Police, Thames Valley, Kent and Essex no longer use us for police diving. Now, I want to make it clear, hasn't affected the business because we're busier than ever. Our turnover's gone up significantly. So police diving never made us any money. We only charged £400 an hour. I funded the operation through my company profits. So we would charge £400 an hour from the time we got called out to the time we returned. So on average, to recover someone a day, you're probably looking at, by the time you packed up and everything, around £3,000. To run an underwater search unit, Thames Valleys was disbanded in 2014. Sussex Police's unit got disbanded before that. Sussex Police sold their boat. They don't even have a boat covering the whole of the length of the coastline. They don't even have a marine unit anymore. And all those officers watching this will agree and go, we've got no resources. This isn't against the police. This is about senior leaders who have made bad decisions and come out and have the front to come out and said, this was a really well-run search operation. No, you didn't find her. And then Marsh said in his interview, he said he was questioned. And he actually, Martin Brunt said Peter Faulding's claim that he found her within 6 minutes. And he said, we searched the area in front of the bench twice. And again, he's confirmed it, in front of the bench twice. And again, on his instructions about a sonar find, there was nothing there. No, she wasn't in front of the bench. Because in the review, it says the police divers weren't available on the 29th, and the surface searches were focused on surface. So not underwater, and no sonar was used. Now, in other parts, they've said sonar was used. They've never produced their sonar footage, ever.
I mean, given the fact there's such a shortage of divers and boats and everything else, from what you've told me here, it probably would have been more suitable to have produced a lessons learned type document to moving forward.
It would, Paul. Sorry, it would have been the most gentlemanly thing to do. It would have been, Peter, look, if we run an operation again like this, please don't speak to the media. Don't publicly humiliate me by striking me off. And because now without SGI covering the southeast, say if there's an aircraft went down or something in the channel or a sunken vessel, or someone's trapped in a car in a flood underwater in an air pocket, a child or something, there is no response. And even in the college, the nearest dive unit now to Surrey is Avon and Somerset or the Met. The Met are extremely busy. The chance of a rapid response from the Met just doesn't happen. So the next one's Avon and Somerset. The next one's Nottingham. There's no units down here. So it's the public who are now suffering. And we've had 3 incidents recently. There was a gentleman who drowned in a weir, actually in Surrey. He went over the side of a weir in a boat with his rowing club. He laid on the bottom of the river 10 days. Now, he would have been found on day 1 normally. We would have been called in and we've pulled him out. He floated up after 10 days. And I actually went on to X and I said, when are you going to deploy sonar and divers? The crime commissioner come back and said, silence. I don't deal with publicity merchants. That's the way you're dealing, Lisa Townsend. That's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a crime commissioner who's attacking me for trying to do what's best for the family. Then you had Glenn Godfrey turn up. Glenn Godfrey was in a reservoir. The National Water Police expert, she said that he would have floated up by now. She was wrong. The volunteers found us little sonar targets. They called Devon and Cornwall police all the way up from Devon and Cornwall to dive a sonar target, which they said there was nothing there, which is fine. I'm not knocking the police divers, but what a waste of police money and public money, all the way from Devon and Cornwall, plus accommodation, plus they're taking them out their area. Then they found something else and they called the Met in. There was just a sandbank. If our sonar had been deployed on the day, but this is the interesting bit, after all that search, not a big search, but they never deployed sonar, Glenn Godfrey floated up 6 months later in that reservoir where they said there was nothing there. 6 months. So people had been drinking that water out of that reservoir. His body was decomposing. The family are so angry. It's like Ellis Downs. We went to search for Ellis Downs in 2016. He drowned. Thames Valley did not have a police dive unit. And we got called in again by the family, Darren Downs. They were searching for 3 days. They used sonar from the Environment Agency. They had firefighters, they had everyone there. Couldn't find him. We were stopped from diving by the police search advisor because he was an ex-pulsar. He was a police diver. They lost their unit. It was an ego thing. He didn't want us there. We were stopped. He advised the superintendent, do not use SGI. They're not approved, which we were because I got him to ring the national database. He lied to the IOPC review. And then also the Met said, do not use SGI. ACPO, again, it's come up again. Head of the diving, guy called Sheed, said, you must not use SGI. So again, what this is about egos. Egos trying to prevent us, because we're good at what we do, they're not thinking of the families. And that's exactly what's happened here with Nicola Bulley. this has been buried. This has been suppressed from the public because it would have been a national embarrassment. What they should have said, what they should be saying to the public now and all the police officers, because the British policing, as you know, the trust in UK policing is an all-time low. It's not caused by the officers on the ground, but it's caused by bad decisions being made at a senior level. And that's exactly what's happening. And this one with Nicola Bulley, because they're continuing to be, we don't make mistakes, this is all okay, Peter Faulding didn't find Nicola. The evidence has been now confirmed by 3 independent experts who have said that is Nicola's body, without a doubt. That is a body.
Do you think if the force had a dedicated media spokesperson, that any of this fallout would have happened?
No, I don't. I think it's a good question, Paul. I think if they had, what they should have done, they should have had a dedicated media spokesperson, which would have prevented me from speaking to the media. That was one thing. But also, if they had had a pollster who actually wanted to listen to us, which normally does happen, to say, thanks, Peter, you can dive, rather than the refusal for us to dive, which was witnessed. The trouble is, all this behaviour is now going to backfire on them, because if they get pulled before the Home Affairs Select Committee, the truth will actually come out. Now, the College of Policing have never conducted a review before. This is the first ever case review that they've done. And this was it was instructed by Andrew Snowden, who's now an MP. He was the Police and Crime Commissioner. He very cleverly instructed them, because the thing is, if it went to an IOPC review, then the IOPC probably would have pulled it apart and gone through absolutely everything. Whereas the College of Policing can mark their own homework, and clearly what they've done here is mark their own homework. And everything is about saying, how can a review be instructed by a crime commissioner and then be presented by the college together? It's not independent at all. So it's a bit of it's very clear what's happened. It's very clear.
How was your relationship with Nicola's family during and after all of this fallout?
Fine. And again, that was the other thing about the review. They said that I'd upset the family. Now, I messaged Paul regularly. I've got the chain of WhatsApps to prove that. So I've been in contact with the family, and also when I done the Douglas McGregor podcast, where we talk about, I hope you mind me mentioning that, but when we did the one for exposing the failures and the geoprofiler, and it was all in there. And we asked permission. I said, we're going to be showing live sonar footage here. Have you any objection? They said no. And since then, I'm actually in contact with the family and close family, friends as well. So, there's a lot of stuff going on in the background here. Clearly, they're not happy. Now this evidence has come out. So there's so much about this whole review process that should never be allowed, and that review should never have been put into the public domain the way it was. It's completely flawed, and that's why I've put the evidence up, because it's wrong. And the unnamed sonar experts, you can't have an unnamed sonar expert. And the other thing is, another senior officer from Lancashire Police refused to take part. Now, what is interesting, a month after the review, one of the assistant chief constable sadly died at home at age 50, died suddenly, no cause known. The chief constable then retired early on the 2nd of January, straight after the new year. I know the crime commissioner was going to carry out a full review. Apparently, he retired early, and Rebecca Smith, the SIO, was retired off prior to the release of the report. That's all the senior command team gone.
Right.
But I think that says it all, really. There's so much to this case. And now I've released, normally I wouldn't put stuff into the public domain, but because they were quite happily do it to me, this caused a lot of this has been very damaging for me, not for work wise in our other role. I say we're busier than ever. I said I run a multi-million pound company.
You say it's
That
more damaging to your character.
it's more damaging to my character as a person because I had trolls. I get whenever I do a podcast or video or something, I get this same unknown trolls come on, say Peter Faulding's a liar. My I had bad book reviews written about me, not many, a few, by the same individuals, trying to give me thing. Unfortunately, it's got nearly 5 stars on Amazon, which is great. So the real people, but these are unverified accounts, as always, Paul. A new account that's just 3 days old have commented on YouTube. But those who know me and in the police I've worked with over the years, I've got the greatest respect for the police and the emergency, so always have done. I mean, this year, to sum it up, I got royal recognition. So the Princess Royal visited SGI, and I spent an hour with the Princess Royal recognising us for our work in forensic search over the last 30 years. And it was pretty amazing. So after all that bad, the publicity, we were recognised at a royal level. And this week we've just been training the Croatian teams in underwater search techniques out in Croatia. And it was launched by the British ambassador, and it's got the full backing of the British government, the British embassy in Zagreb. So I spent 2 days with the British ambassador, and he's amazed at what we do, Javid Patel. And we've been now invited back to the embassy in Zagreb next year. So it's not all bad. So if we were bad, we wouldn't be working at that level. So,
Is this something that you're looking at now moving forward, overseas cases and work?
We're not chasing overseas work. It's just that it came to us. We're doing it, but I'm focused on, also got a life jacket campaign. I deliver free life jackets to kids at schools. I fly in the helicopter and I fund it myself. So I go and deliver water safety talks to schools. I fly around the country. I'll land at a school, do a half-hour water safety talk. That was in memory of Lucas Dobson, the little lad we recovered from the river down in Kent. And that hurt. That's a 6-year-old little boy who drowned, and it was a massive search operation for him. I mean, we never found him. He was actually found, funny enough, by a police officer walking along, and saw him in the river. We actually deploy our divers. The river was horrendous. It was a big tidal river, but I think from that I got together with family and started the Lucas Dobson water safety campaign. So I do an awful lot for charity, and I got recognised by the Lord Lieutenant for that last year in Surrey. So I think, it's all good. I mean, we're good as a company. We're good at everything. But the only blot on the landscape was the Nicola bully. But the truth needs to be told, rather than suppressed, because if it ever goes to a high court, which I fully intended to take it to the high court, all the senior police officers will be pulled before a judge, and then the truth will come out. But it shouldn't happen that way. It should be, if this was a rank and file officer now, let's put it this way, if this was a rank and file officer I was now complaining about online, that officer would be pulled in front of professional standards, suspended. They would make sure that it went in the paper very quickly to protect their own backsides. But what's happened this case, because it's senior officers who have made these decisions, it keeps being brushed under the carpet. They're fully aware of it. ACPO are fully aware of it. HMIs are fully aware of it. Everyone knows what's gone on. But they're continuing just to go. Now, when the Mail done the big article, because I went to the Daily Mail, never got no money for that. I wouldn't take money for any of this. This was to get it into the public domain. They contacted Lancashire Police. Lancashire Police said, no comment. The College of Policing referred themselves back to the report. So they've referred themselves back to a flawed report. So how can the public possibly trust the police? How can they when you've got Hillsborough? It's sad.
It's almost as if, from what you're saying there, it's almost as if once you get to the very top of those police forces, when you talked about chief officers or college of policing, who are they actually
Yep.
accountable to?
They're not, because they're only the Home Office, and everyone's burying it, the Home Secretary ultimately, and they're all just hiding it. The same with all of these cases. It's years later that the families have had to push and push and push to get it into the public domain. And again, just like the Post Office, it was suppressed for years under various governments, and it was only when the BBC documentary came out that then everyone started to resign. But they face, sub postmasters were committing suicide. They were jailed on wrongful accusations. Yet the chief executive of the Post Office, she got a damehood, and she could actually just walk away from this.
Have you had any response from government or anybody else you've written to in relation to the recent report?
I wrote to the coroner. He ignored the letter, recorded delivery and email. That was ignored. So the coroner ignored it. The College of Policing ignored it. So I say now we're instructing lawyers at the moment to work, because they've gone through the case and it's so defamatory about me. It's absolutely a hook, line and sinker defamation case. I mean, it's so defamatory and damaging. You can't produce how they ever. The thing is with the College of Policing, maybe people don't realise, it's actually a private limited company owned by the Home Office. So there's 5 or 6 directors. So the company is run by directors. Now they should have oversight. I'm a director. I have oversight in my company. If someone does something in my company wrong, I'm the one who's in the firing line, because it's my responsibility. But the failure to admit the mistakes, it would be easier if Lancashire Police should have come out maybe once I release this evidence to say, we acknowledge this, we're going to look at the evidence now, but nothing, they've buried it. We're going to look at the evidence, and we believe mistakes may have been made. Then people will go, okay, you're holding your hands up here, that's fair comment. And they would go, okay, maybe we should start to trust them. They've generally admitted it, but they're not. And that's what's going to cause the long-lasting damage to this case. It's the suppression of the evidence, and that can't go on.
If you were ever re-added to the approved list again, is there anything that you would do differently going forward?
No, I would. No, I wouldn't.
So I mean, in terms of speaking to the press, would you not leave that to the police, provided that there's a dedicated media spokesperson?
Right.
Would you wear body cams, mics, record conversations, etc.?
Yeah, we carry body cams. I didn't on the. We don't normally wear them on search jobs. But firstly, I want to make it clear that I never speak to the press. Nicola Bulley was the first ever. So we're working on murder cases, retrieving evidence. It's confidential. We worked on counter-terrorist searches, as well. And that's totally confidential information. It's never gone anywhere. The Nicola Bulley case was the first ever. No press officer. No one even asked me. And the other thing they said in the report, this was another damaging bit, they said that Peter Faulding on the 9th of February requested a photo opportunity with the chief officer. Sorry? Actually, I wasn't even there on the 9th. I'd already on my way home. And that's recorded in my helicopter flight software. I'm actually flying home. So that's another lie. I never. So they've made this up to actually, and I've got all the evidence. They've made this up. So they actually said on the 9th they had a gold group meeting about me. I've gone. So again, this report has been so cobbled together, and how it stood up to scrutiny, it would be ripped to pieces. My lawyers have already ripped it to pieces. It's just a mess.
Yeah, I think I'll put a link to the report on the podcast listing in case anybody wants to go back and refer to what we've talked about on there. I know we've talked about a lot of serious stuff on this podcast, but during all of this, all of your work, can you recall any funny or memorable stories that have happened over the years?
Well, I think a humorous one, and those who police will know, you've got to have some sort of humour on all jobs, really. And it was one when we dug the when we found the body in the garden in Boreham Wood that had been missing. He'd been underground for 5 years, and a few years ago you had to call a doctor in to pronounce death. So we got the body, we lifted it out the ground after Dr. Carl Harrison, the forensic archaeologist, excavated it. We put him in a bag and respectfully carried him to put him into the garage. And so this young, pretty doctor turned up, and she turned up and she's walked into the room, and she said, and she was quite blunt, and she said to me, "Right, where is he?" I said, "He's in there." And she had a stethoscope around her neck and a notepad. And I said, you won't be needing your stethoscope, doctor. And she said, "I'll be the judge of that." Really sort of very sharp with me. I thought, okay, my team are behind me and they're going, "Oh no, what's coming now?" So I said, "Do you want to come with me?" And she said, and I crouched down on the floor in front of the body bag. And I said, "You better get your stethoscope ready." So she put her stethoscope in her ears, and I've unzipped the body bag to a mummified body, and I pulled this to one side, and I said, "There you go." I said, "Dead?" And she just had a total sense of humour failure, got up and walked out. But it was sometimes got to be done, isn't it, really? Because, I don't like people with attitude, and there was no need for that attitude. This was about a man who'd been in the ground. He'd been buried in the ground for 5 years, and she's actually put a stethoscope on. And I just thought, what's the point, really? I mean, it wasn't even needed. He'd been in the ground I said to her, he'd been in the ground for 5 years, but go. But yeah, there's lots of humorous points, but not on drownings and stuff like that, but on other stuff. Too many to remember, really. But I wrote quite a few about that in my book, What Lies Beneath. So I think that was good.
Where can people find your book?
It's on Amazon. It's called What Lies Beneath. It's about my life, about my childhood, about my early days of protest, and it's on Amazon in good bookshops. It's in the bookshops. Many of the Waterstones and local bookshops might have a couple of copies in there, but if not, they'll order it. But simply, it's on audiobook as well. Those who don't like to read, like me sometimes, I listen to audiobooks, so it's on audio. The good thing is, it was actually translated into Chinese, and it went on sale in Taiwan, which was really interesting. I got a call from the publishers and said they want to do a deal in Taiwan. It's like, oh, happy days. And then it went on sale in America. So it's done quite well. But the thing is, people think unless you're a Jeffrey Archer of the world, you don't make big money on books. It was more to get my story out there, really. That's what it's all about, it's just get your life out there, because there's lots of photos in it of me at the White House and me at the diving and the forensic suits, and on the lots about the Tobin case and all the jobs I've worked on over the years. So it was fun. It was fun to do. It was a lot of work, but it was because those who know me, I live on I bought I got a farm in Sussex we live on with lots of animals. So I've got alpacas and turkeys, and I do a lot of, I got a Facebook page, Peter Faulding, which is, I put pictures of my turkeys and stuff up. So most of that's my happy time. So I've got my dogs, I've got my pet pig, and I've got a lot of land. So that is my time to relax.
We've touched on your book there, What Lies Beneath. Surely you've got enough material now for a second book.
Yeah, people keep asking me. I am writing another book at the moment, but I'm keeping it what I'm writing about quiet at the moment. But I could write a complete book on Nicola Bulley case, but whether I choose to do that or not, it's not really. It's not about that. All I want from the Nicola Bulley case is for change to be made in underwater search in the UK, to recognise that our current system is not fit for purpose. Now, I'm not talking about the dive teams. It's the lack of. And what you've done, you've sidelined a completely fantastic resource which covered 6 counties plus, with now nothing. It's only the families who are going to suffer. And it's the attitude now of the police search advisors towards us. So we went to search for Sebastian Sales a while ago in Wiltshire, and that's another family contacted us. They knew we were coming down. The pulser, the dad took me over to meet the pulser to get a brief. She refused to come out the truck and talk to me. She refused. And then the following day, whilst I was down there, that's it. And we went to search the river. And bearing in mind, this is a grieving family. Now, they had one dive team on site. Now, they said the inspector come over and on the pulser's instruction, you're not to go in the river during the daytime because you're in the way of our divers. Hang on, we're downstream. We're nowhere near. But search and rescue volunteers were allowed in the river. See, the other case recently where it's affected everything is we went to search, got called in by the family of Sebastian Sales in Wiltshire. As we arrived, there was one dive team on site from Avon to Somerset, and the dad walked over to the command unit for me to meet the pulser. She refused to talk to me. And then we were told that we can't search the river during the daytime because they're in the way. We'll have to work under the cover of darkness.
What pulsers have refused to speak to you?
Well, the pulsers are now trained at the college. They're trained at the College of Policing, and that's the National Police Search Centre. It used to be at Chattenden under the military and the police years ago. But it's after the Nicola Bulley case we've been sidelined, and we went down there. We were kept out the river, although volunteer search teams were allowed in the river. We weren't. And then they got a sonar company in from Cornwall to bring sonar the river, and they couldn't get any imagery. So then the following day, that night we got some sonar imagery, and it was really good. We were searching down, and I said, I reckon he's in that strainer. That's where he's going to be, because Sebastian, he couldn't get past the strainer. So the following day, they actually brought 2 underwater search units in, because they knew we would probably find him. He'd been missing 10 days, 2 underwater search units. And exactly where I said, he was found in that strainer. But the other point is, I just want to make clear, the other job, which was affected, we were called again by a family to search for little Xylo, 2-year-old lad who got washed away in floods in Leicestershire. Now, the family wanted us involved. Now, I got a personal call from the Assistant Chief Constable, Michaela, who was absolutely lovely. And she said, Peter, you can come up. I got salt at the pulsar. And she said, I'm going to get I trust you totally. She said, I'm not interested in Nicola Bulley stuff. She said, I'm not interested. She said, I want the experts here. So she said, I will give you a full briefing. Took me into the briefing room, the pulsar, give me a full briefing, all the information, CCTV of him going in the river. There was no suspicious circumstances, although online trolls are starting that, suspicious circumstances. And whilst we were setting up that day, the College of Policing actually contacted the senior officers to say, you must not use SGI. Now, bearing in mind, this is a 2-year-old little boy we're searching for. So this is the ego bit, what's come in. There needs to be a full investigation here. Also, the National Police Search Advisor from the NCA said, do not use SGI. He was the one who was putting the boot into me who always has done, at the Lancashire Police. He goes around telling people that do not use SGI. They do not want us there. They do not want us because they know we get results. This should be about results, not about egos. We've worked seamlessly for 30 years alongside the police. No problem. And never an issue. But since the new search advisors have sort of taken over the last, from Mark, they always say, don't use them. They're not needed. He's no water expert. He's not even a diver. He doesn't even know about underwater search. But he peer reviewed the Nicola Bulley case. He peer reviewed it. He's not even a diver. He knows nothing about sonar. Yet he's the one who's happy with the search. He said that they've searched all the way down to the sea and they're happy. Well, you've missed her. You've actually missed Nicola Bulley. Nicola Bulley could never have got to the sea. And that's what no one's ever criticised. No one's actually ever criticised their search, but they chose to go out and attack one man for helping a family. As always, I found her and my team, we found her, but they refused to acknowledge their mistakes. So they hung me up to dry.
What would be the 3 changes that you would make to search procedures like with the police if you were part of the Home Office?
Well, there should be whenever you got a major missing person inquiry, you get all expert advice brought in. You bring the subject matter experts in. That's what you do, and you say, over to you. What do you think? And then you work alongside, like we always have done, with the senior officers, with the senior investigating officers, with the pollsters, to get what's best for the family. That's what this is about. Not about us. It's not about the senior officers. It's about doing the right thing at the right time for the family. The same with all policing. That's what it's about. And like I always said, there's always 2%. I wrote about in my book, I call it the 2%. 2% of bad in every walk of life. It's the 2% of giving all the brilliant, hard-working police officers out there the bad name every day. But it's nothing to do. That's what this is all about, Paul. It's just let's do the right thing for the public, so we all achieve one aim.
And that's a good place to leave it.
It is. Thank you.
About doing the right thing.
Doing the right thing, yeah.
To find those that are missing.
It's about families, absolutely.
Right, where can people find you? We've discussed your book already. Where can people find you?
Oh, thanks, Paul. So I'm on X. I'm not a big poster, but I'm on X at Peter space Faulding. Peter Faulding I'm on Instagram. I'm not a big social media user, but I have posts on Instagram. Peter Faulding. I have an author Facebook page, and Specialist Group International is the company. You'll find us SGI Rescue, Specialist Group International. My own author page is Peter Faulding. There's one with a colour picture on there, but you have to go to pages to find me. Put my name in and go to pages, and I'm on there. But yeah, I post mainly my animals on that one. So my farm life, I say, when I'm on the tractor, that's my happiest place to be. And a few bits. Thank you.
Yeah, and you got your SGI International as well, haven't you?
Specialist Group International. Yeah. That's our main page. That's the company. But thanks very much for talking.
No, thanks for coming on.
Having me on your channel. It's been nice to talk openly.
As part of coming on, you'll get yourself a Pocket Sergeant podcast mug. So you need to send me
magic.
Send me an address.
Thanks, Paul. Really appreciate that. No, it's been nice to talk to you. It's nice to. I just want to get the truth out there. I've got, like I said all along, I've got nothing to hide, nothing at all. I go in any court in front of anybody at all. I am telling exactly as it happened with witnesses. I just hope the police find it in their own hearts really to come out and go, do you know what? We've made mistakes and lessons can be learned, and then it can all go away.
And do you know what? Like, we know from policing perspective as well, everybody should have a right to reply. Everybody should be able to have their own say. And you've had yours again today, which is great.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But I wish I'd had the right to reply with the COP review, and I didn't. I never got that opportunity, which is against all the principles they laying down how other officers should behave. You can't have one rule for one and one rule for the other. It just doesn't work like that.
Cool. Well, hopefully we'll get you back on in the near future if there's any developments.
That's brilliant. No, thank you very much for having me on anyway.
Yeah, thanks, Peter.
Take care, Paul. Bye-bye. All the best.